Good evening. My name is Byron Johnson. I came to Baylor in 2004 to launch something called the Institute for Studies of Religion. I am a social scientist. I'm what we call a number cruncher. And here we are in the Museum of the Bible. I thought it would be appropriate to tell you my favorite book of the Bible. It is the book of Numbers. So I thought I would start out with a few depressing numbers before I do the encouraging that you told from the beginning that you would get tonight. We're in the middle of an opiate epidemic. Overdoses from drugs have increased sixfold since 1999 in the US. This is a pattern that's consistent among men and women of all age groups and of all races. At the same time, we are experiencing continued struggles with alcohol abuse and addiction. If you take a look at the economic impact of the opiate epidemic and the alcohol crisis, it approaches $1 trillion a year in the US. One more staggering problem, suicide. Suicide has increased by 33% in that same time period. And it is now the second leading cause of death among citizens in the US under the age of 35. So those are some pretty depressing statistics. But let me give you some good news to share with you what we do at the Institute for Studies of Religion. We study the impact that religion has in life and in the public square. And so if you practice your faith regularly, here's the good news. It helps you live a happier, healthier life. You're able to cope with things better than other people. It tends to reduce stress. It even increases longevity. If you happen to be white and you regularly practice your faith, demographic statistics tell us it adds 7 years to your life expectancy. If you're African American, it's a 14-year benefit to your life expectancy. It helps people with generosity. It helps them to be more ethical and more tolerant, despite what you might hear in the media. In addition to that, it helps with educational achievement. It helps with character development. And the list goes on and on. There are literally thousands of empirical studies that show the benefits of faith, but you don't see these very often in headlines. We do our best at Baylor to make sure that that does get into the headlines. I have with me two colleagues that do research with me. One is Sunjun Jang, who's sitting in the front up here. He and I have been doing work together for 25 years in the area of crime and delinquency, and we have published many, many studies showing that crime is reduced by faith. And we find this with all kinds of samples, juveniles, adults. We particularly find it in prisons where we hang out an awful lot of the time. And Matt Anderson is a postdoctoral scholar. He's here with us too, and you'll find us in the back afterward. We'd be delighted to talk to you about some of the work that we're doing in those areas. One of the areas we're looking at is addiction. And we're finding out there are some interesting ways we can help people become sober. So for each of those troubled areas that I mentioned, we know we have answers to them. And in the series of studies that we've completed in the last 24 months, we find it's not enough to introduce people to God. There are plenty of people who have a fantastic conversion experience, but they continue to relapse. But what we're finding is if you can take addicts and you can help them help other addicts, along with this relationship with God, they find sobriety. By giving away their life, they find their life. And this is scriptural. We're also finding this among prisoners as we continue to study prisoners. Many years ago, I met Chuck Colson. Some of you may know Chuck Colson, especially those of you here in the Beltway. He founded something called Prison Fellowship after he himself was convicted in the Watergate scandal. Well, Chuck started this ministry to prisoners. It grew. It's the largest prison ministry in the world, and we have been fortunate enough to do most of the research for Prison Fellowship. And we started this a long time ago looking at the impact of 1 hour a week Bible studies. Could this help offenders stay out of trouble? Believe it or not, a 1 hour a week Bible study helped inmates in a comparison, kind of a quasi-experimental study, helped them stay out of prison. So we were able to help Prison Fellowship think, if a Bible study could do that, what if you could have more of an impact than just a Bible study? That led them to launch a faith-based prison in Houston, Texas in 1997 that George W. Bush, then Governor Bush, allowed to happen. And we found that this prison was remarkably successful in reducing recidivism, rearrest, and reincarceration. In fact, the prison where they started this was half faith-based and half general population. The idea was to keep them in quarantine so that the general population did not contaminate the good work going on the faith-based side. Well, as you might expect, just the opposite happened. The faith-based side was doing illegal Bible studies in the general population and baptizing those guys over there. And eventually the whole prison became faith-based. And then that led to other prisons adopting the same model, so we did studies of those too. And then we started thinking a little bit more wisely. It's not enough to show that you can reduce recidivism, but what if you could show policymakers it saved money? So then we started doing return on investment studies and cost-benefit analysis studies, and then we found that the prison actually saved taxpayers $8,300 per inmate participant. Now you have people beginning to take a look at it for that reason alone. Our most recent project was the Louisiana State Penitentiary, also known as Angola, which is located in the swamps of Louisiana. It's not the end of the world, but you can certainly see it from there. We did a study of this prison because it was widely known as the bloodiest prison in America. Rampant corruption, rampant violence, and then a warden goes there in 1995 and launches a Bible college in the prison where you have 6,300 inmates, most of whom are serving life with no hope of parole. So it's a pretty ugly situation that we went to. The warden called me to see if we'd be willing to do a study there. His accent was so strong I couldn't understand a word he said, but we did wind up doing a study, 5-year study, and we found that the prison did in fact have an enormous effect on prisoners that we could document both quantitatively and qualitatively. We found that there was this identity transformation that took place in the lives of prisoners. And the interesting thing is, the warden thought it was all because of the Bible college, but what it really was, the Bible college trained inmate ministers who started churches. So there are 29 inmate-led congregations in a maximum security prison that have many different ministries that reach out and serve other inmates that are serving life. It's an unusual story. It's now spread to some 20 states across the country. That's an example of the kind of work that we're doing. The last piece of the puzzle that I wanted to mention to you is the area of religious freedom. We live in the United States of America where we have religious freedom. In fact, it's in our DNA. It's been a major part of the American experiment, but not everybody enjoys religious freedom around the world. 3/4 of the world's population lives in countries where there are severe religious restrictions, outright persecution. We are studying what that means for those societies and what it means if they can flourish with religious freedom. This is an important work that we're doing with the Religious Freedom Institute right here in Washington, the best people in the country to work with. And what we're trying to do is, again, what is the cost that we're willing to pay to restrict religious freedom? It's an incredibly expensive cost. That's why we're doing the studies that we're doing. We estimate that religion brings $1.2 trillion to the US economy every year. So we want to prove the counterfactual. What would America look like without religion? That's what you stand to gain if you're successful in restricting religious liberty. All these amazing faith-based groups that you hear about all the time, what if we were to completely put them out of business by restricting their religious freedom? At Baylor, we take these kinds of things very seriously. We want to make sure that we do our part into helping humans flourish, and we know that that happens when there's religious freedom. The last thing I wanted to say is, when I was recruited, I was at Penn, and they asked me to come to Baylor, and I thought, well, why would I want to go to Baylor? And the answer became pretty apparent. The world doesn't need another great university. We've got plenty. But what the world desperately needs is a great Christian university, and that's what we intend to build. Thank you.